Hey everyone, welcome to this video tutorial on how to take a car from Maya and import it into Unreal. If you've been watching my previous videos, we've kind of got up to this point and have created the car. Now I'm going to actually recommend that we delete the tires because I did not 100% set them up correctly, and if we proceed with these tires or possibly the tires that you have, there's a high chance they're going to just fall off the vehicle. So don't worry, I will tell you when it's possible to like recustom them if you'd like. But for now, just go ahead and delete your 4 tires. Okay. Then with what's remaining, make sure that everything is combined, your windshields, your car. So select everything, mesh, and then go to combine. Okay. We're going to want to drop a cube next to your vehicle. So I'm going to click cube and I'm going to drop one over there, and mine is really small. Yours might be fairly large depending on the size of your vehicle. But with that cube, I want you to open up your channel box editor and your attribute editor. Just kind of keep them on the side here. And if you've lost either of them, you can just go to Windows and then your general editors, and they're both over here. But just be aware of where they're at. And I want you to, with that cube selected, change the size of it. So let me go into the inputs here, from width of 500, height of 200, and depth of 200. Okay, so 500 by 200 by 200 cube. Okay, this size over here is the relative size of a vehicle in Unreal. So if your car is smaller than this cube, chances are it's going to come like smaller in the game. So if you want it to be like a relatively good size, select your vehicle and make it and scale it with the R key, relatively close to what that cube would be. Okay, so that looks kind of close. I'm going to select this cube now and delete it. That was the sole purpose of it, just to help us scale the vehicle. Okay, I'm going to press space, go into the front view real quick, and select the vehicle, press the W key, and we're going to move this so it's above the x-axis. And then we're going to move our coordinate system from the center of the vehicle to right at the XY intersect point. So with it selected, press insert on the keyboard, then grab the green arrow and just kind of roll it down to that line. Okay, something like that. And then press insert again to save its location. Okay, I'm going to jump back into perspective. And now, the red arrow over here should be pointing in the same direction as the vehicle. Unfortunately, it's pointing in the opposite direction. If by chance you have like some weird thing going on, the other way you can tell is look at the XYZ at the bottom of the screen here. Your car should be pointing in the X line direction. So in my case, they're both the same, but if they weren't, that's what we should be following. So we need to flip the car. To start, I want you to double click on your move tool on the side here. Make sure you're in object mode. Make sure these are all zeros, and if they are, then you're good to go. If they're not, just go ahead and adjust it or switch it from there. Then, with the car selected, we're going to freeze the translation, the rotation, and the scale. What freezing means is it's going to set everything to zeros and the scales to 1. Okay, so it's going to essentially like forget all the translations that happened and all the rotations and scales and such. So to do that, with the car selected, modify, freeze transformations, and click the box next to it. Then we're going to make sure translate, rotate, and scale are all checked, and then we're going to press apply. Okay, and in our attribute editor, you can tell that it's reset those all to 0, and the scale is now 1. So I'm going to close out of that. And when I click on it, you might notice that no, the car is still not facing the correct direction. And what I probably should have done first was use the E key to rotate the car 180 degrees. So let me rotate this now 180 degrees. And now I got to, get rid of that. So same deal as before, just go to that freeze transformation and just freeze it, and it'll set it back to 0. Okay, so I'm going to flip my car around now to the other side, and when I click on it and press W, it's now facing the correct direction. Also not a bad idea to name these. So I'm going to call this chassis over in my attribute editor. I believe this is where you name it. If not, it's the other one here. So let me just type this as chassis. And in case I was wrong for this poly surface, for where it says transform, I'm going to call this chassis 1. Okay. This is just going to help me, remember the name. Okay, so that's all set. These are all zeros and ones. The unfortunate part, though, is that Unreal is going to read this, but it needs to read that the rotate Y is negative 90 degrees. But if I set it right now to negative 90 degrees and press enter, like it's no longer facing the X direction. Yeah, actually it's not the Y, it's the X that needs to be the negative 90. Yeah, it's no longer facing the correct way. It's slanted 90 degrees. So the fix for that is we're going to set the rotate X to 90 degrees. And then we're going to go to modify freeze transformations again. And we're going to freeze those transformations. It sets it back to 0. So if we went negative 90 degrees, now it's back to normal. And we have that negative 90 degrees there. Okay, hopefully you're still with me at this point. I apologize if I'm moving quickly. This is like my 12th attempt at this, so yeah, I've kind of been working through it. Okay, we're ready to add in the wheels. I'm going to go ahead, drop in a cylinder, just one over there. And in the attribute editor, or actually the inputs here, okay, for polycylinder 1, I'm going to rename that. Let's call this front left for my front left wheel. And I'm going to change the radius. Based on this car, it probably has a radius of like 50 or so, and then a height of 30. Okay, so there's a wheel. I'm going to rotate it, and let's just rotate it negative 90 degrees. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to press space, go over here, and I'm going to move this kind of into place for the car. If it overlaps a little bit, it should be fine, so I wouldn't worry about that. I'm going to go into my top view, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to duplicate this wheel, Control D, and move that over here, jump back here, and move that over here. Okay, I should probably say at this point, if you wanted to customize a wheel and continue this process, it should work fine. Your wheels should work now. But if you're hesitant and you don't want to, I'm not going to force you to. I'll probably paint these black, and that's going to be the extent of what I do to it. Okay. Also notice that the wheels aren't on the x-axis. So if we import this into Unreal, these wheels are going to sink into the floor. So let's just make sure we raise it just slightly above. Okay. And now back in the front view, let's select these two wheels and kind of push them into the car body a little bit, like so. And then I'm going to do Control D and move these out to over there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. They look pretty balanced. I'm going to select all 4 of them and just add in a quick texture to them. So right click, assign new material, Lambert, and let's change the color over to black. Okay, so we got our wheels. Now that we got the wheels in place, we are going to parent them to the vehicle. We want to make sure that, oh, I probably should have named that front left over there, but that's fine. We want to make sure that they all have a name as well. So I kind of fail at this sometimes just because I'm not 100% sure, but for the transform P-cylinder 1, this is going to be our front left, enter. The one behind it, P-cylinder 2, that's going to be our rear left, enter. This is our front right wheel, enter. And this here is our rear right wheel, enter. So they all have a name now. You can now select all 4 of them. And you might notice that they're all facing the correct direction. That's awesome. And then lastly, select the car, and you're going to press P. That's going to parent the wheels to the vehicle. So when you select the vehicle, it selects the wheels as well. But then if you select the wheels, they're children of the vehicle, so they can be selected on their own. Okay, we shouldn't have to really do much to any of these wheels, but I'm going to select all 4 of them. and reset or freeze the rotates and the scales just in case there's anything there. We're not going to mess with the translates. We need to keep those as they are. So modify, freeze transforms, and then turn off the translate check mark. If these go to 0, the wheels will fall off your car. Okay, and I'm going to press apply and close out of that. Okay, so now they each are also facing the correct direction. Awesome. Finally, the last step of this process is to clear the history of this part. There's a lot of stuff going on that we don't want Unreal to pick up on. To clear the history of the part, just have the part selected, then go to Edit, Delete by Type, and then History. And that's going to clear all the history of the parts so they are currently in their truest form without any of that past stuff. They are what they are, essentially. Okay, we can export it now. You're going to go to File, Export Selection, make sure everything's selected, and click on that box next to that. And the main thing is that it's an FBX export, okay? If it is, click Export Selection and save it to somewhere where you're going to be able to find it. Awesome. And in the next video, we're going to be walking through the Unreal steps, and we're going to get this car to move. So I'll see you then. Peace.